going, I think. Maybe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Spinner Rack. Today we're talking about Kwame Brown. Things are blowing up, and we had to touch this topic. So once again, we got our resident Supremo on this issue, Petey.
What an intro. Well, most people say, I can't live up to that intro. I guess I have to build myself back up to get to that intro. Lord.
And we also have Cal himself. So Petey.
I would like to say you can't see Cal on there live right now, but he's there. He's definitely there. You'll hear him.
Okay, so Petey, the reason we're bringing it up is I want to give a brief background on what's going on and how did we get to this whole thing with Kwame Brown. So for people, just so we get a quick overview, he was a #1 draft pick in the NBA back in 2001, I believe it was, for the Washington Wizards. He worked there for a couple of years. He also played for Los Angeles Lakers for I think 2 or 3 seasons. He was with the Memphis Grizzlies, Detroit Pistons, Charlotte Bobcats, Golden State Warriors, and finally he ended up in Philadelphia 76ers. He was a McDonald's All-American. So I mean the kid could play. He wasn't like a nobody. He averaged about 6 points a game, 6.6 points a game. He had rebounds 5.5. He had like 0.9 assists. So I mean he did have some decent stats, not fantastic naturally, but there's been a whole thing about him being a #1 draft pick and not making it as well as some of the others. And so we all know how this turns out. I mean, the reality is, look at Tom Brady. I mean, he was like so far down a damn draft pick that no one would have thought that he would be the winningest football player in the world. So hey, why are all these celebs jumping on our board on Kwame Brown? Why is this coming to a head? So here,
it hasn't just come to a head. If we go, and it's interesting now because we're gonna hop around here because I did cover some of this before. But if we go to this, it's gonna look like Kwame's upset. It's a younger picture of him. But here, are you seeing this? You seeing this stuff now? Great. Yeah. So if you look at this video here, he's on Sports Illustrated and basically stating his issue with how people were kind of talking about his legacy in the game of basketball. Basically, they're using him and taking shots at him for no good reason and not actually using stats. So let's listen to it. And but this is Sports Illustrated. This is them allowing him a voice. So
people that don't know me approach me how the media perception is of me. They say perception is reality, which is the dumbest thing in the world.
With the first pick in the 2001 NBA draft, the Washington Wizards select Kwame Brown from Wayne Academy.
Now, we stop here for a second. This is one of the things that changes the dynamic of having a draft, a #1 draft pick right here, and Jordan coming back at the same time. So whereas the energy, like when LeBron went to the Cavaliers, all the energy went to LeBron. The time was more spent on trying to get Jordan this championship. It wasn't, Jordan did those commercials where he said, "You reach, I teach," and he was there to teach the NBA players about the game, the stuff he knew about it. But ultimately, Jordan wanted to get to the finals. So everything that, even though all the draft picks don't always work out, they don't always have this great illustrious career like LeBron or something like other players like that. But at the same time, any of that could have happened, kind of got superseded because Jordan was coming in. So there we go.
With Georgia.
You was the #1 overall pick in the draft by your Washington Wizards. Did you think at this stage there would be more progress?
Kwame Brown, arguably the biggest bust in NBA draft history.
This man was a bona fide scrub.
I think a lot of the times people say things that are opinions and they say it as a fact. So many people wanted to be a part of me and wanted to gravitate to me and make up these stories. None of those stories are true because a lot of the media is gossip. Stop acting like you know a person through what someone else is saying. Get to know a person yourself. Kwame Brown is a kid that went through a struggle that
all right, let's keep, so they don't flag us. I'm just gonna go back, and right here, this is some of Kwame's former teammates. They were talking about him coming in and how hard he worked because people are saying, well, he might not have been he shouldn't have been the number one draft pick. When they said he played against all of those guys, and I'm going to mention it later in here, and he beat out everybody that he was playing, Tyson Chandler, anyone that was in his draft, he had to play against, and you know the workouts showed that he was the guy. So it is what it is. But Doug Collins, this is what his teammates were saying, that they recently did a video where they did like a Zoom chat, and it's like four of them saying, you know how Kwame did everything that was asked, but Doug Collins is there. He was brought in by Jordan, and there's times where Kwame did nothing wrong, and then Doug Collins was like, Kwame, and you didn't do X, Y, Z, because he couldn't say anything to Jordan. He would just go and just like go heavy on. He said, you know, having him overworked out like before a game. They're like, get on the treadmill, do this. We need to do this, and he'd be finished by the time he get into the game. There's also stuff you have to go to Kwame's his YouTube page, the what's the name, Kwame Brown Bus Life, and in there he kind of talks about more of the politics behind there, and it gives you what was going on at the same time, especially with college teammates, college players, high school players going to the NBA. So it's kind of a thing where they were like, they didn't want all the high school players to just jump to the NBA because it was moving. They were trying to say this kind of example was made to say, hey, it doesn't work out. So I'll keep playing so we can go through it. But anyone else, definitely chime in.
Like you know a person through what someone else has said. Get to know a person yourself. Kwame Brown is a kid that went through a struggle that the average person would die going through. I went from a homeless shelter. I was one of 8 children. So how can you call that kid a loser or that kid unsuccessful when if you put your son in the same situation I was in, or even you probably wouldn't be here.
For the first time in NBA draft history, a high school kid is #1 in the draft.
They always say, name a #1 draft pick that scored his amount of points and all of this, all of that, but name a #1 draft pick that had Michael Jordan on his team. As soon as MJ came back, there was no process to build me as a player. It was, we got to win right now. I was in awe, just like everybody else. But there's an old saying, you don't want to meet the person that you idolize. They're never going to live up to what you think they are. He was a great competitor. He was a great teammate. It's just, I was the first to ever be drafted out of high school #1. It was a big risk they were taking. So who do you blame it on? You blame it on the kid. You start talking about his hands.
He has small hands.
You start talking about this.
He can't catch the ball.
You start talking about that.
He has no game whatsoever, plays no defense.
And you forget that there was a process that I went through to get to that point. No one just picked my name out of a bucket and said, hey, you're #1 draft pick. They lined guys up in front of me. I played against guys that they said were going to be #1 and #2. People forget that whole process. But if you go back and do your numbers and you look at when I do play, no one talks about Charlotte. I was averaging double-double in 2 quarters. Tyrese Thomas had 40 million for that one season that he almost had a double-double. I got a 1-year deal.
Wow.
Gosh, so I don't know how the story ends, but the Big 3 means for me another opportunity to compete.
Okay, so this is what it's about.
Inside Jason Williams.
I was in LA, couldn't dunk a basketball. This video was rotating on YouTube. Mitch Kupchak called me in the office and said, I need you to play. I come from the inner city of Georgia and from the slums. You paying me $8 million. They shot me up with cortisone. I played. That summer, I had ankle reconstructive surgery and shoulder surgery. But the casual fans didn't care about that. They just laughed. He couldn't dunk a basketball. I get it now. I get why so many people are jealous. It's not fair to have someone who is 18 and a half, 19-year-old, walking to $12 million while you have to go off to college, and no matter what you say, you can't take that away. When I walk in a room and somebody with a bigger name than me, I have a bit of jealousy as well, but people won't say that. I'm just honest enough to admit it. I'm in the history books. I make history.
Wow, pretty interesting. I mean, that's some. You never take it from the perspective of the person going through the madness. You know what I'm trying to say? You always see people want to take pop shots at people and say, "Hey, this is what they're supposed to do," and we forget that they're human, just like everybody else, right?
Well, I'm okay with you're at home and this is what we do. As home fans, is the a-hole complaining, saying how terrible you are. you're no good, that sort of a cream, you don't work hard enough, that was a broken airplane, that sort of stuff. That's fine. The thing is that the before all this thing came to a head, there's this 20-year history of the ESPN and the sportscasters going to him. I think they had a game, like a sort of phony game show where they had a lottery on who gets to deal with Kwame's his contract. So they were like, oh, I get stuck with the contract. Oh Lord, and how much do I have to pay? Oh, 3 million. Oh, how like they had all the teams with phony owners and that sort of thing, and who was going to trade to keep to get Kwame Brown like in a negative way. So it's really hard for it to be something like that. But what actually came to a head, which I've talked about before, was the All the Smoke podcast, where we had Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, who were former teammates. They were humans themselves. Actually, Steven Jackson was a teammate of Kwame Brown. So they said a couple of jokes in 2 different episodes, and he finally chimed in and he joked back at them. He joked about he called Matt Barnes Becky with the good hair because of his hair looking like like the barge. And we had Stack Five. He called Steven Jackson, who also known as Stack Five. He said, "Hey, at some point you talk about
He said, yeah, that one was good. That one was funny."
And he said to Stack Five, he said, "You at one point you're building up black people, talking about Black Lives Matter, and then next thing you're calling me, my life is a bust, my life is dirt." So he's like saying, what kind of you like phony flip flopper, that type of thing, and that hurt him. So these guys, I thought that I'm a fan of both of those guys, actually all 3. So I hoped this would be a learning moment where we would just apologize and say, all right, you know what? I didn't like what Kwame said about me, but I get it. We didn't have to drag your name. We didn't have to take some pot shots. We apologize and be the bigger men. Since they're on TV, at that point, he's only on YouTube. He's still only on YouTube. He's a lot countrier than what you see here, but the points are very strong on Kwame's side. So ultimately, they didn't apologize. He kept going in on them. And then other people that were in the podcast network with All the Smoke podcast started to chime in, like Charlemagne the God, who said that brought up his family history. And then, of course, it was, Jamel Hill said, he's choosing violence and that sort of thing. And he went at both of them, so, and I think Dr. Boyce Watkins, he said something recently too, I think after the video I did. So he finally chimed in about that too. And he was, cut him pretty deep. And everyone tries to act like, what did I do? What did I do? That sort of thing. Like, why would you even chime in? And that's the thing. And they also tried to use Tracy McGrady. So since Tracy McGrady said, hey, I didn't really think he was that good or something to that effect. But at the same time, with that said, he didn't attack Tracy McGrady. He was like, that's Tracy's opinion. This is different. This is not about like someone having an opinion that I'm not good. This is about them spending all this time throughout my life tearing my name down out the blue. And so everyone keeps saying, that thing and say, I insult Mars. I say, hey, Mars, you can't play basketball. And you say, you hurt me with your response back. I say, hey, keep it basketball. I was only talking about basketball. I don't have the right to tell you how to react when I've insulted you first. The reaction, you can't react. You can react to the reaction, but remember, you're starting the forest fire. You're keeping it going and that sort of thing. So yeah, ultimately now, I think he's on live right now. So if you're watching us and you want something also entertaining, you can go to his Bus Light page and check it out, because he just had Judge Joe Brown, and that one is a heavy one. That one's a very heavy one because he talks about the history of how Black men are being presented and saying how Hollywood, through the struggles of Hollywood because of television, the Black male was presented as negative in these Black exploitation films. And I'd only add one correction, because we also have the movie with the Rudy Ray Moore, the Dolomite movie. Like Hollywood and the people that do the Dolomite music records, they didn't necessarily want to do those films. Ultimately, they were just successful. And that's why Hollywood went that way and said, let us do more, like that sort of thing. So it wasn't like they sat around and initially planned to utilize the black dollar. They saw Melvin Van Peebles utilizing the black dollar. They saw, hey, Rudy Ray Moore making all this money on the circuit he was doing these comedy tours, and how people were buying. They were like, hey, we don't necessarily want to do this sort of material, but it's successful. Let's utilize it. And of course, we know how the Hollywood, ultimately those movies are not here anymore, but we have those sort of action heroes the same way. So, I mean, if you listen to Jojo Brown, because Jojo Brown wanted to talk to all the people that had said stuff to Kwame. And of course, you don't want to go into any debate with Jojo Brown because you're not going to win. You're not going to win. He's old school. He's tough. You can see from there's this other, I forget the other person who went on there and he clicked off the thing. Sorry for the updates.
Right, but so here's the thing. I don't mean to cut you off here.
Here we go.
So why are so many of them jumping in on this right now? That's really what the
they're a podcast network. All the people in the podcast network are jumping in. So ESPN, sorry.
No, finish what you're saying.
ESPN, the people that are like Charlemagne is connected to the podcast. Stephen A, since he's going at Stephen A, people, and Rachel Nichols. He also went at Rachel Nichols because Rachel Nichols has been on him since he was a rookie, and she was a reporter back then in DC. So when this happened, Matt Barnes went on Rachel Nichols' show and she brought it up, and he was like, "Oh, it's nothing. I didn't even say anything, but some people just can't. He basically he's crying. It's a cry out." So it's kind of Matt did the big insult there, so that's why he really got mad at Matt Barnes and kind of really was hitting him pretty hard. So yes, these people are connected to either between ESPN and or the podcast thing. It hasn't been in too many people, because most of his teammates, no one really has anything really bad to say out of his teammates, anyone who knows him. It's just people that know the narrative kind of going that way. So
right. So then, but why there seems to be a specific thing with Stephen A. Smith? What's going on there? Why it seems as though he just seems to be particularly hard.
Yes, thank you. That's keeping it on point. What made his career, again, it was Jalen Rose, who tried to talk about, let's see, can I find it? Jalen Rose and Skip Bayless. Basically,
I'm gonna let PD finish, but then after PD finishes, I'm gonna ask if this whole situation with Kwame Brown reminds anybody of another player, which, because I'm looking at everything that's unfolding with him.
Yeah.
And they're doing a lot of the stuff that they normally do, where they just go and they will savage a player, just savage a player. And you're supposed to just take it. Either you take it and you prove your game, you shut them down that way, or, it doesn't happen. You're just supposed to take it. And a lot of people seem not to understand. This isn't 1986 or 1996. The venue is different. And a lot of the stuff that would have been just regulated to the sports pages, especially with these podcasts, you got a lot more people saying this stuff. And so the idea that the reaction from people is going to be the same is very naive. But also when the reaction, when you kind of like get a taste of your own medicine and everybody, they're flipping out. That's the stuff that gets me. It's like this guy came over and says, okay, I'm just going to give you a little taste of what I can do based on the fact that, I did grow up kind of hard, so I can dish as well. And then they're like, oh, you went too far. You went too far. But sorry about that. Go ahead.
No, that's the strong one of the strong point to make, because if you once you've been hitting someone for like pity patting them for 5, 10, 20 years, and the next thing you know, he just sort of slaps you back and like, where did that come from? I'm just a commentator. That's sort of the Charlemagne thing. But yeah, that's right. It hit right on the head, the hammer, the nail on the head, right? So we're gonna go to where Jalen Rose kind of was confronting these guys on their oh no, I think I have to stop this for a second. I think I turned off the audio. Of course I did. Yep. Turn on the audio, and this is a discussion where Jalen Rose insulted Skip Bayless. If you know who Skip Bayless is, both of them, they were on. Who was it? They were on this first take. There's obviously Stephen A. Smith, Skip Bayless, who's now on Undisputed on Fox, and they're talking about Jalen Rose insulted Skip Bayless about his terrible scores as a college player. So then they had this big discussion about insulting players. And this is a long time ago, but this led to a lot of shows being created after this.
Make friends. We here to tell it like it is. Let's move on.
I want you guys to understand
Wasting
something.
our
Though.
time with this nonsense.
This is a national forum, and when you talk about somebody's character, you talk about their game, you question their integrity, that's their likeness. That's how they eat. That's how they feed their family. And Stephen, I'm going to give you an example.
You
because
have?
it's all love. I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to give you an example. How do you think Kwame Brown feels when you say Kwame? How do you think Rasho Nesterovic feels when you say Rasho? How do you think Tiago Splitter feels when you say his
name? Do I get to answer this, or are these rhetorical questions?
Sure, go ahead.
Do I get to answer it, or are they just rhetorical questions?
Go ahead.
Let me tell you something right now. Kwame, all right, I'm going to tell you why I say Kwame Brown or Rasho Nesterovic, Slava Medvedenko. I'll tell you why. Because you're Kwame Brown. You're 7 feet tall. You're the #1 overall draft pick, okay? Jalen Rose came into this league. Reggie Miller came into this league, a plethora of other individuals that understood the privileged position that they were in. You come into this league, you came in without a jump shot. You came in without the ability to rebound. You came in without the ability to do nice footwork, to pass, to rebound, to defend, to score points, or whatever the case may be. And it's a decade later, and you're still that dude. You never worked and put forth your due diligence in order to take advantage of the privilege opportunity that you were in. And when I see that level of consistency as it pertains to an aptitude, I'm going to.
You know what? That sounds a little tough. I mean, because if you have the club itself, you know, you figure if he has a weakness, they would work on it, right?
But the idea that this guy's, I mean, that's extreme in that they're saying that this guy came into the league and couldn't play. That's pretty much what he's saying. No footwork, you can't rebound, you don't have a jump, you know, how the hell did he get in there?
But they're blaming him as opposed to blaming the club. The club comes in, let's say he doesn't have any of those skills. Let's say that.
Then how did he?
So the club just says, hey, we're going to hold on to him like this. And they don't
none of these skills. According to this guy, he has none of these skills, and he's the #1 draft pick.
And he didn't try.
And that's not, and it's not facts. It's not the actual stats. It's just his opinion. Now, this style of journalism is definitely something that they've done and they've utilized all the time. And pieces of this where you have Jalen Rose defending the players, what Skip Bayless kind of saw and said we should have a player advocate, and he used it for his show Undisputed, having Shannon Sharp on there. But that's sort of looking at it and just saying a broad statement with no facts, or maybe there's some facts in there, but it's like nothing backed on the actual stat. It's just saying, hey, I'm gonna say you have small hands, you can't rebound, you can't do anything, and it's like, and it's not the same as say, you know, I guess you have expectations for your #1 draft pick, but it's not the same as when we saw Kobe Bryant made those air balls in the playoffs, and then next you know you see him. But this is someone that they were slowly trying out as it was going on. Where this one they were like really trying to push forward. And then you also have the fact people don't want to factor in injuries because injuries are what they are. But you know, it's not what keeps his numbers down. Actually, injuries. It's not because of he had no talent. That's how he got this average of 6. It's like, no, it's out of these injuries that he had. So, you know, that's the crux of why his that's actually not, that's not even Kwame bringing it up. That was Jalen who had kind of had enough of just insulting these players and calling Chris Bosh Spice and stuff like that. They had
how long ago was that interview?
Oh, I think this is, let's say, I think it's in the early 2000s. But it's one of the things where, yeah, he kind of attacked one of them, and he kind of pointed out, if you don't like it, then what are you guys doing? These guys they're playing, you know, you can talk about stuff, but not go this harsh. So, but ultimately, it's hard to say because you see, when I looked at the country, the extra country Kwame video, they're like, this guy really has the insight of the game, and I can look past the curse words, the N word, and I'll be like, you know what, he has something there that, and when you see this other one where he's very calm and what's not, and this, that, and the other, it's like, yo, this guy's good on TV too. You know, he looked, they have him, obviously it's a piece, so it kind of looks kind of sad in the early, or Sports Illustrated interview, but you know, this is the tough thing because they've been doing this and they want to be like the at-home guy insulting the player, like, you know, the people in the stands moaning when Patrick Ewing is doing his you know, he's doing his he's backing down the player and getting those 2 points or going to the foul line, and the whole audience moans and that sort of thing. That's not for the commentators, but they want to be that too. They want to be the armchair guy who gets to say the best insults and that sort of thing. So
you're saying basically they made the channel like the channel, these opinions guys, these hosts are basically, these are their opinions. And so just like, instead of being the journalists, like where they give the numbers, facts, someone like Stephen A. Smith, they are like the Fox, the Hannity of ESPN, basically, because you know, they can say whatever they want to say because this is their opinion and they have a right to say it, as opposed to
more than that. These guys, these type of sports commentators, they've been doing this for years, where they could just come over there and hammer these guys. And the idea was that, well, look at you, you're playing this sport, you're making all this money, so just take it. You know, take it. That's all. You know, I don't have to be accurate or fair or anything of that nature. Just take it. And if I can keep savaging you, I'm just going to keep doing it. It's good for me. Okay, good for my ratings and so on and so forth. And hey, you just go cry into the bag of money. You know, you know, everybody would love to be in your position. You come over here and you're still making all this money, so I can say whatever the hell I want about you. It's just, I don't see mine giving a guy a hard time. You know, in terms of you know, player, and they're not necessarily doing their best and they're not playing the capacity. I don't mind that. I don't mind that. It's the but when you like start coming into stuff, it's just not unfair, or you don't want to take the whole thing into a situation where like, well, he's, you know, he's playing this, that, and the other. Well, the dude just had surgery. You know, give him, you know, at least give him a chance to, you know, to try to shake that off and get back into it at the end of the day. And then, hey, if things don't shape out, feel free. But these guys are just like, hey, it's literally like bulls with a red cape, and, you know, and Kwame's like the red cape at the end of the day, and they're just going out and you know, in some cases just being totally inaccurate about the situation. But his situation, Kwame Brown reminds me of Patrick Ewing when he came to the Knicks. Patrick Ewing was a #1 draft pick, and he, you know, he had just come off, you know, the Georgetown Hoyas, you know, monster time when he was over there with the Hoyas. And what happens when he comes out? He gets injured. That's pretty much, you know, he gets injured, he has to have surgery. And I think that that does affect him for the rest of his career in terms, you know, in terms of making certain that he was healthy enough to play, knees and so on and so forth. But the New York press never let up on him. It didn't matter that the New York Knicks didn't necessarily surround him with a core that was going to be able to take him to a championship until Pat Riley came on the squad. And it was a totally different outlook. His hands were too small. He didn't have the footwork. He wasn't agile. He didn't have this. He didn't have that. And mind you, this is the greatest guy. This is rather the greatest Knick of all time. He's the lead in every single thing. In scoring, blocks, rebounds. You know, they had to retire his number. So the problem wasn't him. You know, this guy was putting up, I mean, this guy did some awesome stuff. I think when Riley came on the team, he was trying to get Ewing to shoot hook shots. And Ewing was like, you know, why don't you shoot the hook shots? Like Kareem. And Ewing was like, I'm not Kareem. You know, I'm not Kareem. I don't do that. But, you know, I do this. Ewing was the guy, they were giving him, he's out there taking 20-foot jumpers. I was like, yeah, he could play the more traditional center stuff, but he's nailing the jump. He's nailing the jumpers at the end of the day. And they never were able to incorporated that. When Riley came over, I think he finally felt he had a coach who was behind him. And, you know, you could see the difference in the team, and they were just beating everybody. That 92 year, they were just beating everybody up. It was great. It was just a great year. But the difference in play when you feel that somebody's behind you, and then they still They still turned him out to Seattle with all the numbers this guy had and how much he had brought to the squad, to the team while he was there. They still ended up turning him out to Seattle, rather than let him retire as a Knick, which really should have been what happened. So I look at the stuff with Kwame Brown, and it reminds me a lot, with some definitely some differences, but it reminds me a lot of how the press would get on Ewing. Didn't matter, that this guy was out there playing injured, okay, had to have surgery. Was a certain type of player, couldn't necessarily get the players to compliment him. And yeah, if you come out there and you're playing, and the next thing you know, well, Michael Jordan's on the squad, how much light do you think you're going to get, Mr. #1 draft pick? You're getting zero. You're getting zero at the end of the day, because we know when Jordan gets on the squad, it's going to be and rightfully so, it's going to be a totally different type of offense. The only difference is that Ewing was, he was definitely more silent about this. He closed himself off from the press, and he didn't necessarily talk too much about, other stuff. And then they came after him for that. That, oh, he seems like he's cold, and he doesn't really want to share this, that, and I was like, yeah, you got this savage in him for years. He's like, he doesn't trust you at this point. But, Brown is over here like, okay, I'm going to, I'll come over here, I'll play a little bit. And these guys all, like they're on fire. Like, what are you doing? You're not supposed to talk back. You're supposed to just take it.
I mean, I got to agree with you, Patrick Ewing. I mean, his stats are just truly impressive,
And they never let up on him. They never let up on him. He should have never been traded. So when I look at Brown, I'm like, look, that's, there's a lot of parallels that I see over there. Two different players, but a lot of parallels in terms of the treatment, of the player at the end of the day.
Well, the New York media is brutal. You know that. I mean, it's extremely.
Yeah, you can be brutal. I mean, look, you can be brutal. You can be brutal on somebody's game. Everybody's got, nobody's game is infallible. So everybody's got weaknesses with their game. And if you want to go after the weaknesses because you think these are something the guy can improve, okay, by all means. But if you know good and well this dude is never going to be able to flip quarters off the back of the backboard, it's just never going to happen. And you're going to be, you should be flipping quarters off the backboard with your height and this, that, and the other. And so, well, then now you're being an ass.
Right. Thank you, Cal, because let's get back to Kwame Brown, the whole reason we're here. I get your point here. There've been a couple of comments too. We got this guy named Zarbi. He was talking about why would Charlemagne say that what he said about his family? About I guess he's talking about Kwame Brown's family.
That's a good question. Why would he? He has no involvement in the thing. He's not.
Why would he jump into this whole argument?
The only thing we can assume is that they're connected via podcasts. That he's
part of the same podcast network. You're saying?
Same podcast network. So he signed them up for podcasts. Actually, all the Smoke podcasts, and he's sort of chiming in because it's hurting their money.
So what, they all go into like a lunchroom after they finish doing their podcast and they sit down and talk, and then
it doesn't make sense.
This dude, is that what you're trying to say?
Truthfully, it doesn't make any sense. You're right. It doesn't make sense that Charlemagne would do it since he's a hip hop radio guy.
Yeah.
How does that relate to anything hip hop? Jeannie Buss was where they did the initial insult. They were sitting with Jeannie Buss, and that's where they first insulted him. And then next thing you know, somehow it's like, hey, I think I have that somewhere, but I'm gonna play you. What's the name? Before we go back to Charlemagne, because that's it's a good question to ask. But at the same time, let's look at Rachel Nichols. I have to play this one because you can see this is on ESPN. This is on.
Before we start that, we also have a comment by someone, Leon Cook, where he said that was in 2011. I guess that's an answer to one of your thing. And then Zarbi also said,
the Jalen Rose thing.
Yeah, the Jalen Rose thing. And then we also got
thank you for that.
Zarbi also said that Patrick won Rookie of the Year. I guess the year, Cal, you were talking about, he came in with the injury. Cal?
I'm sorry, what was the question?
I said, no, I'm just questioning. I said, we just had a couple of comments. So Zarbi was saying Patrick won Rookie of the year he started. That was the year he got injured, right?
I believe so.
Okay, cool. All right, Petey, so as you were saying?
This is what really set him off to really go at Matt Barnes here.
So Matt, Kwame Brown had some comments about you on IG Live this weekend. Do you care to address?
Yeah, I was just confused. I didn't really know what happened. I didn't know where they came from. I was coaching the kids this weekend, and I look on social media and people going crazy. But I get where he's coming from. I mean, he's kind of been the butt of jokes coming into the league and not being able to live up to that #1 potential. I guess some stuff was said on the podcast.
I don't know. Like, to me, your anger is focused to me. I didn't say nothing, do nothing. If you want to be mad at anyone, be mad at MJ for picking you number one.
You're referring to the All the Smoke podcast where you had Gilbert Arenas on. It was you and Steven Jackson.
And I don't even recall Rachel, to be honest with you. So good luck, bro. I got nothing.
So then it's kind of, dismissive type of thing. And then he let him have it, and they kind of got, I don't really want to show you some of the stuff he said because it gets kind of raunchy. But let's see. Here's one of the other pieces, which is, I don't know what my Genie Bus thing is. But let's go to, this is not the initial one, but this is the second one that came up. Cleans it up, and there was an initial issue between him and Gilbert, but they handle it behind the scenes. Gilbert talked to him. Kwame stopped talking about Gilbert altogether. So it's one of those things where it's not something where he wouldn't have made peace with at least the NBA players, but they keep trying to go. They try to keep having their chest out, being like, "Yo, like I'm trying to help people out. We helping black people with black men." And that's when the Kwame is saying, y'all out there tearing down black men just like the media. And he's like, no, we're not. That sort of thing. So,
I thought it was really interesting what he said. It's your whole. I mean, and I felt that too.
What?
Working for Jordan, an 18-year-old kid. He says it himself. Working for Jordan, it was not easy. Basically, the development, the focus on Jordan when he was working with the Wizards was he wanted to get a championship, and that's what he wanted so bad. So the focus was not going to be on Kwame. The focus was on Jordan and Jordan getting the team to where they need to go. And unfortunately, that hurt. It hurt. Wizards never made it, but Kwame never was able to do it.
Well, I mean, it was more on Jordan. That's the thing. Nowadays, we look at it and say Jordan, say Kwame, and that sort of mix. But ultimately, it was. I mean, they let him off the hook because he was older, but he didn't make it. And they were, one of the harder things is when
they let him off the hook because he's Michael Jordan.
Yeah. And if you look at, there was a game which everyone's forgotten because people don't really respect Keith Van Horn. But when the Nets really started rolling, they killed the Wizards, and Keith Van Horn had like 40 points, and they had Jordan talking and saying, "This is my worst game of my career," this, that, and the other, and that sort of thing. So it's a period when you were in there, the reports of Jordan was like every day, like what's going on there, and the playoff watch for Jordan was really intense. But of course, he ain't make it. So, but yeah, I guess unless I think I would definitely suggest. I'm trying to find what those. I'll try to put it in our description of the couple other podcasts to listen to try to get the other side of it, because you can see, with the Rachel Nichols kind of thing, where she put that up on her I think Twitter, and then the people really like attacked, and she had to take it down. That same clip I just showed you of her. So they kind of looked at, hey, what is this about? Oh, it's nothing. And then now it's something. So people keep coming and chiming in. So what can I say? This is, I like Kwame's, his YouTube page is very interesting. He's very funny. He actually did, well, I'm not gonna say that part, but I will say he does a joke because he had his son on there, and he's like, he said his son looked like a little like Sideshow Bob, and he's like, I'm gonna get this kid tested again. I keep testing him, but I keep testing him. They keep saying he's mine, but I'm not sure. I don't know. So yeah, he's pretty funny.
So what about so here's the question: why is the audience resonating more with Kwame than they are with some of the other guys? What's the thing? I mean, because I'm looking at it and I'm like, this is a David and Goliath fight.
You're right. Yes.
It's a gang versus one dude fight. It's like, okay, all these dudes in the press. I'm not excusing, poor play or anything of that nature, but you have, you got guys over here, and this was like the low-hanging fruit, for these guys to just come over here. Hey, let's just, come over here. Let's just come over here, and we're gonna go after him, and we're gonna keep going after him, and that was pretty much it. And if people are coming, I mean, I don't think they came before this. But if people are coming on his side now, it's probably because he, took some time to speak up about it.
Got it. What about?
It also makes sense to be like, he's basically saying, if you saying my career was, I didn't live up to expectation, do it with the numbers. And I would say, ultimately, I wouldn't agree with even them bringing him up anymore. He's not in the game, right? There's no reason he's not in tandem with Gilbert Arenas. We don't think of Kwame with Gilbert Arenas. The fame of Gilbert and how great he was that season, when we were looking to see him and go at LeBron forever, which didn't happen. We don't think of anyone else besides Gilbert Arenas. So it's like, you don't need to keep going. We don't even go to the Wizards and say, Jordan and Brown, that sort of thing. We don't think about that, but they keep trying to drag him in there to kind of get a dig. Like this is the easy 4 points. And that's sort of thing that Kwame is also asked, is that there's a video of Stephen A. Smith going to colleges, doing his whole, almost a comedy set on Kwame Brown, saying how bad he was, the short hands, small hands, this, that, and the other, can't pick up the ball, bad footwork, and to go like spot to spot using the stock material is just criminal.
That is just crazy, bro. I mean, I don't know what to say about that. It's like they have a vendetta against him, or probably there is something going on. And one thing I noticed in some of the things I've been seeing about Kwame Brown, he hasn't actually come out and attacked Jordan. Jordan hasn't said much anything. And I know, I get the feelings that he didn't feel as though he was treated as well as he could have by the Wizards, but he doesn't come out and out and say, Jordan was a devil himself. Do you see that?
What I mean, seriously, what are you going to say?
Well, the organization, Jordan was part owner of the Wizards. And
if he came out against Jordan, to be quite honest, he would sound like a whiner at the end of the day. I mean, it is what it is. You're on a squad with Michael Jordan. What do you think is going to, I mean, is there anybody here who thinks it would have happened any differently? So him coming out and saying anything, at least he's showing, if not some maturity, some common sense, and saying, look, this was not going to play out any differently so long as Michael Jordan was on the squad. And he was on the squad.
Okay.
So to end this video, I'm just going to do a quick show, because it's like we've been busted by YouTube too much. But this is his YouTube page, Kwame Brown Bust Life, playing off the term being a bust is there. So obviously he's a funny guy. You're subscribed, we get notifications. Go there, but I'm not gonna play anything because they'll get us they'll knock us down for any curse words, anything like that. And who knows what Mars will say to me and what I let play. So
language, bro, language.
Definitely check it out. And I guess that's it. We'll try to chime in some more as things are going. And anything else to be said, please chime in, guys.
Yeah, well, I just said one thing. Thank you very much for all this, Petey. Good synopsis. Not a synopsis, definitely not a synopsis.
40 minutes.
Thanks for chiming in too. Great thing on Ewing. So
92 Knicks forever.
Well, hopefully, let's see the 2021 Knicks make it. So,
yeah,
okay. But I think the Nets have a far better chance. Spin rack.
Well, if they keep it together, out.
You mean they keep it together, bro? They just blew out 2-0. What are you talking about?
But they go up and down. There's like parts where they're just like, yeah, you're right. You're totally right. They shouldn't have problems in this round. But they go from, that's the problem. You can't do the accordion leads where you go, hey, we're up, we're down, and they're like going back and forth. When you get to LeBron in the finals and you're playing that way, you just gotta. That's what the word is. You just gotta torch them. You give them any room to breathe, they're gonna find a way to win. So you have to, in these playoffs, definitively win. That's when we saw the Lakers when they did their second run with Kobe and Shaq, definitively destroying a team. That's what you got to do. Don't get in there. Once you get to, that's what happens.
It's the first round, for God's sake.
Don't trust it. I don't trust it. Don't trust it at all. I'm sorry.
All I gotta say, one thing is that the Knicks Atlanta game has been really good. You know, it's been very exciting. There's been ups and downs. I didn't tell you the truth. My money was not on the Knicks to make it as far as they've done.
You actually put money. You're saying you bet against them. Just don't tell
No,
me that
I
you
never
bet
said that.
against
I never said that. I'm a New Yorker. I can't bet against the Knicks. But I'm just saying, I'm just surprised.
You did
You
it
know.
before.
them.
Thank you for chiming in.
You didn't say you didn't. Oh my goodness. Criminal. Criminal.
Of course I didn't. But
Criminal.
while the Nets, you know, in their loss, I thought that was a very slim opportunity that Boston was able to take and overlook. But I think overall, I just see the Nets as being a stronger team overall if they can stay healthy. You know.
All right. Thank you,
So-
guys. Let's get this.
I got a really big bone to pick with you, Petey, another day. Okay. We'll talk.